You booked it, episode 206. What's going on, everyone? Thank you for joining me today on You Booked It, the #1 podcast where you learn how to create a successful entertainment career. Have you joined the You Booked It community yet? It is your go-to entertainment career resource. Inside, you'll have direct access to Broadway performers, Emmy nominees, and people just like yourself navigating this industry. Learn from those walking the walk, build industry relationships, access unlimited masterclasses, and learn how to book the job more consistently. Join free today. Tap the link in the show notes or go to youbookeditpodcast.com/invite to get inside. And now, let's meet today's guest. Okay, everybody, let's get this started. I am excited to introduce my guest today, Zaq Latino. Are you ready for this, Zaq?
I am so ready, and thank you again for having me, Dane. It's really a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. On any given day, you can find Zaq reading in French, binging all the anime Hulu has to offer, geeking out to Indian Hindustani percussion, crafting a mean eggplant parmigiana, and doing art. Described as an outstanding musician, composer, and sound artist, Zaq is equal parts composer, theater director, educator, and arts administrator. They are the founder of validBodies Art Project, an arts production company dedicated to the mobilization of LGBTQIA+ and other underrepresented voices. As a composer, Zaq has worked with Jack Quartet, Arditi Quartet, and Divertimento Ensemble, among others. Most recently, Zaq was named a finalist for the American Prize in Orchestral Composition for Hidden Lakes. A proud, non-binary artist, Zaq uses both they, them, their, and he, him, his pronouns. Zaq, that is a quick intro of who you are and what you've done, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, fill in the gaps, and a little bit more about what you do as a professional in the entertainment industry?
Marvelous. Thank you for that illustrious introduction. Currently, so I definitely started out more in the music world. I am a theater kid who transferred to being an orchestra kid, obsessed with classical music, who has the trajectory of going to music school. I went to Ithaca College for my bachelor's in composition, and there, while growing as a composer, also learned how much I missed the theater, having not actually pursued it professionally. And so I think a lot of my work is actually retroactively going back and trying to make the theater fit into my musical training. I think perhaps beyond that, though, I'm certainly an advocate for my community, LGBTQIA plus, as well as other underserved communities that I've had the pleasure of working with, had the pleasure of touching lives within. And so the culmination of my professional experience right now is being the founder and executive director of validBodies Arts Project. Thank you for the shout out, which is currently in 501c3 nonprofit formation, which means that someday we'll be able to receive donations tax deductible. And that particular company is having our first show released virtually by the end of this summer 2021 called Zachary Hates Everything. And I can't wait for everyone to see it.
Oh, fantastic. Very exciting and very cool work you're doing with validBodies. I'm excited to get into all of that through the interview. But first, let's get into this section. And Zaq, look, I am a sucker for a good quote. What is your favorite quote you'd like to share with everyone?
I was super excited when you asked this. So there's definitely a few that spin in my mind all the time. The one I'm going to talk about today is from Jane Fonda. She says, it's never too late to start over, never too late to be happy. And I think I take that quote to heart because I've been wrestling as an artist who's trying to survive in the world in which you need to make money to live in this country. And I think that a lot of my more recent work in my recent life is coming back to the things that I love. And I really love that quote because even though I'm in my mid 20s now, I put a lot of pressure on myself to be young. I put a lot of pressure on myself to be vibrant. And I think sometimes I get sad thinking that I'm old. And so that quote, it's never too late to start over, really
Oh, we
speaks to me.
Yeah, we've not had that on the show, but that is a really wonderful quote, and I love how you've tied that into your life. And you know what? I'm inclined to also very much agree with you, and I feel in your shoes in that same regard. As we get through this life and we get older, and it's an interesting thing to to notice and reflect on and see how things change and evolve. And it's good and it's bad and it is what it is. And trying to enjoy it as much as possible and being present is what it's all about.
I couldn't agree more. And I think, especially for a lot of your audience and people listening, there was certainly just sort of an ingrained wrestle between the blue sky, right, the dream life, and the practical life that we all go through. And how do you find the perfect avenue in which you can be artistically fulfilled, but you can also eat 21 times a week? I think sometimes makes people's heads spin, but I think a lot of what I'm doing right now is navigating that liminal space in between of maybe my passions are something that I could monetize in a certain way. And I think being able to talk about my nonprofit experience later is a great example of that.
Beautiful. Well, let's get into this next section here. And Zaq, of course, you are an entertainment professional. I'm an entertainment professional, and I think that you'd agree that this industry can be one of the most subjective, brutally honest, and personally emotional industries in existence. And you know as well as I that in order to create and have a successful career in this industry like you're having now takes a lot of dedication and hard work. And while, yes, there is an outrageous amount of fun and excitement being an entertainer, there are also our fair share of obstacles, challenges, and failures we're going to experience and we're going to have to move forward through. So tell us, what is one key challenge, obstacle, or failure you've experienced in your career, and how did you come out the other side better because of it?
I do have one key challenge, but it opens up another conversation. I think my own key challenge is being absolutely terrified to put myself out there. And notice how I say am and not was. Thank you very much for your accolades and for considering me a successful entertainment person, whatever that might mean for different people. But I think that I'm still constantly learning and constantly growing and trying to push outside of my own limitations. So I think the failure is me consistently battling with the voices in my head that I'm not good enough, or that I shouldn't really be trying this, or even that there's other people that want this more than me. I used to go into auditions because I do have acting experience and I'm getting back into it and I'm super excited about that. But I would go into audition rooms and self-reject. And I would be like, okay, maybe I don't want this as much as other people. I would just be terrified and just be completely overwhelmed just by the whole audition process, etc. And I think now I am just starting to come out of my shell, my post-quarantine shell, so to speak. I'm realizing that everyone is in the same boat together, even if you've acted on Broadway professionally, even if you've done things in the past that are notable. I think coming out of this pandemic, we are all on the same page. And so I'm finally ready to not be afraid. And as I mentioned off the record before, I just prepped some audition videos before getting on here. And that's my hey world, I'm here. I want to get back into acting and I'm going to do it. And I think part of your question of being better because of it is I feel like a chicken that has marinated overnight, Dane. Although I'm actually a pescatarian, but I feel like someone who has had so much experience of not believing in yourself that now that I've come on the other side, I'm so more able to embrace the discomforts as well as the excitement of getting back on the horse again.
For sure. I love how you said, we're all in the same boat. We're all on the same page, regardless if you've been a Broadway actor or just starting out. We all have to get into that room. We all have to audition, right? And that's just part of this entire career. It's part of doing the gig. And
Right.
we all experience those nerves. And it's one of those things that the more you do it, the more you put yourself out there, the easier it gets. Sure, but it's something that we all have to go through. And I think it's really important to remember that because, like you said, it's really easy to get into that self-deprecating mind space where you just sabotage yourself before you even started. And to remember, hey, we're all in this together. We're all there just to perform and do what we do. And that's it. Leave it there.
I completely agree.
Did you know building industry relationships are the most important assets you need to create a long-lasting entertainment career? And don't take my word for it. Guest after guest here on the podcast have attributed some of their biggest career moments to their relationships. That is why you need to get yourself inside the You Booked It community. You'll learn what you need to do to get noticed, and make sure your headshot stays in the callback pile so you can book the gig more consistently and create a successful career. Tap the link in the show notes or go to youbookeditpodcast.com/invite to get inside free today. Great. Well, let's move on to a time that I like to call your spotlight moment. That one moment in time you realized, yes, I am going to be an entertainer for a living. Or maybe it was, yes, this is what I need to be doing in the entertainment industry. Tell us about that.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Theater has been a part of my life for a really long time. And if I can go backwards a little bit, my very first introduction to the theater was the Wicked soundtrack, as so many Gen Zs and millennials, I guess. I know many people with the same similar experience. And so growing up with that soundtrack, once I knew what it was, Dane, once I knew that you could professionally act, you could make things like this. I know it sounds romantic, but I sincerely was absolutely hooked. And before this moment of knowing that you could act professionally, I was doing magic shows in my friends' parents' basement and singing and doing things on my own, whatever, just as a naturally artistic child, I think, as a naturally
Mm.
artistic person growing up. And then the discovery that you can make, well, not that you can make money from this. I feel bad that I'm attaching everything to money. I just mean the discovery that you can be a professional at this medium was absolutely life changing. And I actually have a very fortunate experience that I was able to then see the show with my parents after becoming obsessed with the soundtrack. And although we had nosebleed seats in the Gershwin, right, the biggest Broadway house in like row H or something, rear mezzanine, I couldn't see anything except when the witch flies. I'm sure she got above some of the heads. But just hearing it and hearing sort of the scope of it, if that makes any sense, seeing how big it is,
Yeah.
I just knew that I needed to do that. And I think a lot of my life experience goes away from the theater and comes back, right? And doing classical music stuff, which my bio states a lot about because that's what I've sort of been obsessed with most recently. I've always been navigating back into the theater because I need it. And it really is informed from that earliest of experiences.
So good. And I agree. I think my first album was Rent. So just right before, but then really from there learned and discovered Wicked and everything like this because I started in this industry quite late. So I can very much relate to being hooked by hearing those albums and listening to them. And just really, I think you said, oh, I don't want to keep tying things to money, but I think there is this wonderful moment that you have to have, right? Where a lot of people will be artistic, like you said, as just naturally. But then there comes a time where you go, oh, this is what not only do I want to do, but I can do as a profession. And just like people go, do people's taxes every day, I get to go sing and dance. And that is something very cool. And it is a mindset shift for sure to go, oh, now I'm a professional now. It's not just a hobby anymore. And you definitely have to cross that bridge at some point. So I think it's a wonderful realization to make. And I remember that as well. It's such an exciting time.
It is, and I actually love what you said because I don't actually think you made it more about money. Although here I am bringing it up again for the fourth time, but there is a certain level of commitment that comes with the realization that you want to be a professional at this, whatever that looks like, and the dedication that comes with that commitment. And I think that's actually what I fell in love with classical music about, or the aspect of classical music with which I fell in love with is the absolute commitment that some of these performers that my peer composers have to their medium, that they live, breathe, and wake up this stuff. And talking about classical vocalists, right? Living like monks in all respect, except for your performance at night, to really dedicate your body and your mind to this idea of being an artist, I think is just the most beautiful thing in the world. To me.
Yes, well said. Well, let's piggyback on that real quick and let's talk about your number one booked it moment. Walk us through that day, the auditions and callbacks, if they happen to be a part of it. What was going on in your life, and what about that moment makes it your favorite booked it moment?
Awesome. Thank you. My booked it moment, I'm going to talk about my auditions for Tommy. I played Captain Walker in a semi-professional production of Tommy at Theater Horizons in Norristown, Pennsylvania. Anybody Pennsylvania, shout out. The auditions were actually in Philadelphia. And my parents, where I used to live, my parents lived half an hour outside. So I was actually staying, some friends were staying with me rather. And we were like, okay, let's go up to the city for the day. Let's go up to Philly for the day. And I secretly had signed up for this audition and I hadn't actually told them just because I didn't want to make a big deal about myself. So we all got to the city and we're walking around and we suddenly, and by suddenly I mean I completely directed us to the theater at which the auditions were supposed to take place. And I was like, oh yeah, like they're having auditions, like I should go in. Just playing around, even though I totally signed up ahead of time. And they were like completely supportive. My two friends were like, yeah, go ahead, we'll go eat and we'll wait for you. I hope that this story gives people who are afraid to audition insight and sort of a second invigoration to go towards what you want. Because I actually walked into the room and did what I said earlier. I was so intimidated, excuse me, by everybody else that I actually left. I walked into the audition, I like confirmed that I was signed in, and I just walked out the door because I was terrified. And I caught up with my friends and they asked me how it did, and I lied and I said, yeah, it was great. Because I didn't want that. What was I going to tell my friends? Hey, I actually chickened out, even though this was my idea. So the auditions actually took place over 2 days, and that was the first day. So I went home, and Dane, I'm sure maybe at some point in your life you can relate to this like sinking regret feeling. It was just the most, my stomach hurt with regret of not having auditioned. And I was like, I was there. I had my song ready. I was just, everything was in place for me to succeed, but I was terrified. So I actually drove back to the city myself on the second day and I re signed in and I sang the song that I should have sung the day before. And I actually got the part. And that was my first professional theater job.
Oh, that's so good.
Thank you. No, it is so romantic talking about it. I'm like, wow, it seems like I stole that from somewhere, but it's a really it's a true story. And I think whenever, even to this day, when I go into auditions and I question if I'm good enough, I'm like, if you didn't audition for Tommy, you wouldn't have gotten it, right? You can't self-reject. And that's just something I keep with myself to this day.
Kudos to you for getting back there the second day and making it happen. It's really a difficult thing to put yourself out there. But I think what we also need to remember as well is that we have no idea what they're looking for. Yes, there's the description, the outline of what the characters are meant to be and who they're looking for, but that's very vague when you actually get people in front of you and you have people coming into the room and you go, oh, okay, that person could be this person. And then other people start coming in and then all sorts of possibilities start happening. And it's so far out of our control that we really just have to show up and do our thing.
No, and I love that you said that, right? Because now that I've directed two productions at this point, and so being at the other end of the table, it's
Yeah.
exactly as you said it. It's almost like you go to a restaurant, like you go to a steakhouse, and you know that you're going to get a fillet, even though you haven't seen the menu yet. And you're like, okay, I want the fillet. And then when you actually see the menu, you're like, oh, wait, but the chicken looks really good. It's like whenever you have
Yeah.
a character description, an actor might come in who maybe does not match that to a T, but you suddenly just make this connection and it's just cosmic and it's, wait, you are that person after all, right? So I would even, unless they're really rigid guidelines, I know that some equity calls are super rigid sometimes, but if they're not, I would encourage anybody to go for anything and
Yeah.
just give it a chance.
Yeah, 100%. Or yeah, or if like it's a Rockette line and everyone has to be like the same height. That's
Oh, of course,
those
no,
things.
exactly.
There's only obviously there are situations where there's specificity and they're going to follow the specificity because they have to and they can. But in most cases, give it a go.
Exactly. I completely agree.
Yes. Let's take a moment to talk about the present. What projects are you working on now? What are you looking forward to? And we're coming out of this global pandemic. How do you see the entertainment industry moving forward in the next couple of years?
Thank you for this space to talk about some of the things we're doing. I'm so excited. I can talk first as a composer. I'm actually in the Divertimento Studio summer program at the Longy School of Music at Bard right now. And I am having a premiere on Thursday. It's a soprano, viola, piano trio I'm very excited about with text by Edna St. Vincent Millay. And I'm very excited about that. And also in the composition sphere, I do have a chamber album coming out called Dollhouse.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you very much, which should be released on all streaming services this summer. I'm working with Carolyn Regula is an incredible cellist and friend who we met at Boston and our paths just crossed and we just knew we were not only friends but meant to work together. So we wrote this half an hour piece together showcasing her cello work as well as her duo partner, Dan Chow, who's an incredible violinist. And the three of us, as well as three third people. They're called three non-piano trios, Dane, because a piano trio, right, is a piano, violin, cello, but all the trios don't have a piano. They have some other
Right.
third person. So that's what that is. So that's coming out this summer. I'm also while doing this stuff is we're formulating the nonprofit for validBodies. We're officially incorporating on the federal level. And so our show, as I kind of mentioned before, Zachary Hates Everything, will be out virtually. I believe we're using Showtix for You at the end of the summer, which is super exciting. I'm actually still editing, which is a beast. It is a beast to edit a
Mm.
virtual play shot on iPhones from three different time zones across the country. It's really an
Whoa.
honor. But it's so cool to be able to have actors from outside of New York, a New York professional space to be in. And I think that's one of the most rewarding parts of what I'm doing. And in terms of acting, I don't know yet, but I am auditioning around. I would love to get back into it. So we'll see if I'm able to persist in all three mediums or if I have to cut it back down to two. But either way, I'm very happy and I am doing something. In terms of the entertainment industry, I think the virtual platform has been incredible in so many ways. And one of them I sort of touched upon just now is that people from outside of the immediate New York area can involve themselves in these semi-professional New York productions, which really help their resume and really help their experience. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I could even see virtual theater continuing even once live theater is reintroduced. And some people, when I say that to them, think that I'm bonkers because they can't imagine why anybody would prefer to watch something on Zoom. But it's not about preferring, it's just about it really adds a layer of practicality to it. And smaller companies don't have to pay for venue spaces, they don't have to pay for rehearsal spaces. And being able to do readings on Zoom allows you to record it so easily. So I could definitely see Zoom actually being a theater tool for many years to come.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's all about the accessibility, I think. You're right. There's not anything you can replace live theater with, but live theater is quite expensive on all fronts, from the production to attending it. And not everyone has just the financial accessibility or even the geographical accessibility. And having virtual events, I think, is amazing. Have you seen people or seen any of the productions that are happening on like Minecraft and Roblox?
I cannot particularly name one because I haven't watched them, but I have heard about this, and
Yeah, that they're a
I think
thing and
it's
they're happening.
amazing.
Yeah, it's very cool. So you're still able to, it's still a virtual production. People record and they are the voices and things and they move their characters around, but it still gives a visual element to it, which is cool. But because Minecraft and Roblox are very much user generated, you can create your characters, although it's not super high resolution or anything like that, but it allows everything to be creative and unique and custom. It's very cool.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah, amazing. And it is time to move on to one of my favorite sections in the interview. I call it the Grease Lightning Round.
Yes.
I am going to ask you a handful of questions. I want you to answer them as quickly and concisely as possible, one after another. Are you ready?
Born ready. Let's go.
All right, first question. What was the one thing holding you back from committing to a career as an entertainer?
My own anxiety and insecurity.
Second question. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
Never, ever self reject. Submit it anyway, audition anyway, and let them accept or reject you, but don't do it to yourself.
Yes, good. Third question. What is something that is working for you right now? Or if you'd like to go pre COVID, what was working for you before our industry went on pause?
If nobody will hire you, if nobody will cast you, do it yourself. Produce your own plays, direct your own plays, find people to work with you, and create your own opportunities.
Oh, I love that. Fourth question. What is your best resource? Whether that is a book, a movie, a YouTube video, maybe a podcast or piece of technology you found is helping your career right now.
I am going to plug someone who does not know that I'm plugging them or someone who has no idea that I know who they are. The Work It Daily YouTube channel is one of the most incredible resources for applying for jobs and like doing resume and cover letter and interview prep. And even though it is not directly tied to the arts, I think that some of her resources, the resources of this YouTube channel, are absolutely transferable and imperative for actors and arts professionals alike to be able to learn how to talk better about their craft, learn how to give an elevator pitch, and learn how to network with each other. And I would completely recommend it. It's called the Work It Daily YouTube channel once
Beautiful.
again.
Thank you for that resource. Brilliant. I've not heard of it. I will have to check it out after we're done with this interview.
Please, no, JT O'Donnell runs it, and she's brilliant. Absolutely.
Beautiful. And the fifth question. If you had to start your career from scratch, but you still had all the knowledge and experience you've collected from your career in this industry, what would you do or not do? Would you do anything differently, or would you keep it the same?
I think I would keep it the same. I don't know how many people have answered that way. Maybe there's plenty of them, but I think we can always play the hindsight game, right? Hindsight's 2020, whatever. We can always wish that things were different, but I cannot claim that I would be who I am right now in this moment with you or with the listener right now if it was not for all the mistakes I made and for all the years not wasted, but which I perceive as having wasted by not taking immediate action on my career. I was marinating as a human. I was preparing myself to be ready. And I don't think I would change anything. And I think I'm very grateful to be able to say that confidently.
Love that answer. Thank you. And the last question. What is the golden nugget knowledge drop you've learned from your successful career in this industry you would like to leave with our listeners?
Dane, I think I'm going to reuse the don't self reject because I think it's so powerful and I think it's something that a lot of people in our industry need to hear, that don't assume that you're not right for something. Let the casting director make that decision for you. I think it's really important. So I'm going to use it again.
I agree. I think that's very much worth using again and reiterating. So everyone, submit your work, do it, let someone else make the decision. Don't do it to yourself. And to wrap up this interview, it is time to give yourself a plug. Zaq, where can we find you? How do our listeners connect with you? Is there anything you want to promote?
Yes, thank you for this space. I am releasing Dollhouse on all streaming platforms this summer. As I mentioned, you can follow my Instagram at Zaq Latino, one word spelt just like my real name. There I post every day, at least once a day, sometimes twice, sometimes three times if I'm really doing it, but most often once a day. Just doing career updates wherever I am. So you'll see a variety of composition, theater, video editing, whatever. I just give it to you straight, whatever my main task is for the day, and let you into my world. But I want to open the space up for LGBTQIA plus people, especially gender nonconforming, non-binary people like myself who need somebody in the industry to be a spearhead for them or to be a good influence or somebody that they can look up to rather. You can message me. You can go to my Instagram and direct message me and I'll always answer, even if it's just some, one-on-one time just to hang out with each other or to get advice, anything like that. I do have a website, www.zaqlatino. There's three W's, sorry. www.zaqlatino.com. I do have sheet music sales on there. If you're interested in my classical music world, as well as SoundCloud, you can listen to some of my more recent stuff. I have some recordings coming out at the end of the month. And that is about it, Dane. Other than that, maybe once I start directing / being in live shows post-COVID, I'll have something to tell you. But as of right now, the world's still opening up a little slowly, I think. But that's everything I'm doing.
Beautiful. And for everyone listening out there, I have put the links to everything Zaq just said into the description of this episode so you can easily connect with them. And also, be sure to share this podcast with your fellow entertainers, coaches, teachers, arts and entertainment educators, and anyone you know aspiring to create a career in the entertainment industry. You Booked It is the #1 resource of expertise on how to actually create a successful entertainment career. Case in point, everything Zaq gave us here today on this interview. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next guest. Zaq, thank you so much for being here today. It's been wonderful having you on, and someone who is from a different part of this industry than really the bulk of this podcast. And I think it was such an enlightening podcast, such an enlightening episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dane. Sincerely, I really appreciate the opportunity. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much for listening today. If you enjoyed this episode and want more like it, be sure to smash that subscribe button. Also, be sure to join the You Booked It community. Inside, you can connect with your people, build industry relationships, unlock unlimited masterclasses, and access the tools and training you need to create sustainable career momentum. Get your invite link right now. Tap the link in the show notes or head over to youbookeditpodcast.com/invite, and we'll see you there.